My cheating ex wanted me back. I taught him a lesson. It had been a year since I caught Liam cheating. A whole year of rebuilding myself, finding my confidence, and realizing I deserved so much better. I wasn't the same naive girl who sobbed into a pint of ice cream while scrolling through his messages with her. I was stronger now. So when he texted me out of the blue, saying he missed me, I couldn't help but laugh. Missed me? Oh, the audacity. Hey, I messed up. I never stopped thinking about you. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a few seconds before a deliciously wicked idea formed in my mind. If Liam thought he could waltz back into my life without consequences, he had another thing coming. I replied, keeping it short and sweet. Sure, let's meet at Cafe Luna at 7 tomorrow. I knew Liam well enough to predict his reaction. He'd think I was melting back into his arms, that I'd been waiting for this moment. He always assumed he was irresistible. Well, not this time. The next evening, I slipped into my best revenge dress, a deep red number that hugged my curves perfectly. Confidence radiated from me as I walked into the cafe, spotting Liam already seated, nervously drumming his fingers on the table. His eyes widened when he saw me. Wow, you look amazing. I smirked. I know. His grin faltered slightly. I could see the gears turning in his head. This wasn't the broken girl he expected. We exchanged small talk before he finally sighed. Listen, I screwed up. I was an idiot, and I regret everything. I miss us. I miss you. I tilted my head. You mean you miss having someone who trusted you blindly? He winced. No, that's not. I held up a finger. Tell me, Liam, why should I believe you've changed? He launched into a speech about growth, self-reflection, and how he realized I was the one. It was almost convincing. Almost. I leaned forward, giving him a flirtatious smile. You know, I've thought about this moment a lot. About what I'd say if you ever came crawling back. Hope flickered in his eyes. And? I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I turned the screen toward him. It was a picture of me and my new boyfriend. A gorgeous, kind-hearted man who treated me like a queen. Meet Daniel, I said sweetly. He's taking me to Paris next week. Liam's face drained of color. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I stood up, slinging my purse over my shoulder. You were right about one thing, Liam. I did deserve better. And I found him. Then I walked out, leaving him to stew in his regret. Revenge never tasted so sweet. As I stepped out of Cafe Luna, the crisp evening air hit my face, carrying with it the faint scent of roasted coffee and freshly baked pastries. My heels clicked confidently against the pavement, each step echoing like the final punctuation of a chapter I'd closed for good. Or so I thought. A week later, while packing for Paris with Daniel, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Liam, again. I get it. You've moved on. But can we talk? Just one last time. Please. I rolled my eyes, ready to block his number for good, but then I paused. Something about the message felt different. Desperate. Not in the manipulative way he usually was, but almost sincere? Against my better judgment, I replied with 2 words. Why bother? His response came almost instantly. Because you're right. I never deserved you. But I need to say something I should have said a long time ago. Now, my curiosity was officially piqued. We agreed to meet at a park near where we used to live, neutral ground. Daniel was supportive, though skeptical. Are you sure you're not giving him space in your head again? He asked, his dark eyes filled with concern. I just need to hear him out. Closure, maybe, I replied, though even I wasn't sure what I expected. When I arrived, Liam looked different. Not the smug, self-assured guy I remembered. He was thinner, his usual swagger replaced with something closer to humility. I wasn't lying when I said I've been thinking about you. He began, stuffing his hands in his jacket pockets. But not because I thought I could win you back. It's because I realized how badly I treated you, and for the first time, I understood why. I crossed my arms, waiting. He took a deep breath. I was insecure. I cheated because I needed validation from other people. Needed to feel like I mattered because deep down, I didn't believe I deserved someone like you. You were too good for me, and instead of rising to meet you, I dragged you down. I blinked. That wasn't the apology I expected. No excuses, no shifting blame. Just honesty. I don't want anything from you. He added quickly. I just needed to say it. To acknowledge that you didn't deserve what I did. And to tell you that you walking away, it changed me. Not for the better at first, but eventually it made me face who I was. For a moment, silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant sounds of kids playing and dogs barking. Well, I said slowly, I hope you carry that lesson with you. Not for me, but for whoever comes next. They deserve better than the guy you used to be. He nodded, a sad smile tugging at his lips. They will. As I walked away this time, there was no triumphant victory, no dramatic exit, just a quiet peace. Liam's apology didn't change the past, but it closed a door I hadn't realized was still slightly ajar. When I got home, Daniel greeted me with his warm smile. How'd it go? I wrapped my arms around him. Exactly how it needed to. And that was the real lesson. Not for Liam, but for me. Moving on isn't about revenge or even closure. It's about realizing you've already won by choosing yourself. Paris was everything I'd dreamed of. Cobblestone streets drenched in golden light, the scent of fresh baguettes and blooming flowers in the air, and Daniel's hand wrapped securely around mine. But even as I stood at the top of the Eiffel Tower, overlooking the city of love, Liam's words lingered in the back of my mind like a faint echo. Not because I missed him. Far from it. But because for the first time, I wasn't angry. The weight of betrayal had been replaced by something lighter, something unexpected. Closure. Or so I thought. One crisp morning, Daniel and I decided to grab coffee at a quaint cafe tucked away in Montmartre. We were laughing about something silly when Daniel suddenly froze mid-sentence, his eyes narrowing over my shoulder. I turned, and there he was. Liam. In Paris. He looked just as shocked as I felt. A half-empty cup of espresso in his hand, standing with a girl I didn't recognize. For a split second, the world seemed to shrink, the bustling noises of Paris fading into the background. Then Liam nodded at me, a small, polite gesture, like two distant acquaintances acknowledging each other. No drama, no lingering stares, just acknowledgement. Daniel leaned in. You okay? I smiled, genuinely this time. Yeah, actually I am. We paid for our coffee and left, my heart lighter than it had been in years. Later that night, as the city sparkled outside our hotel window, my phone buzzed again. A message from Liam. Didn't expect to see you today. Just wanted to say, you look happy. I'm glad. I stared at the message, a soft laugh escaping my lips. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Liam had been a chapter in my life. A messy, painful one. But just a chapter. Seeing him again in the most unexpected place reminded me that life moves on. People grow. And sometimes the best revenge isn't a clever comeback or a dramatic exit. It's living well. And I was. Daniel wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. What's so funny? Nothing, I whispered, locking my phone and placing it face down. Just life. Because the real lesson wasn't about teaching Liam anything. It was about realizing I'd already learned everything I needed to know. The rest of our Paris trip was magical. Sunsets along the Seine, spontaneous street performances, and endless laughter with Daniel. I thought that brief, unexpected encounter with Liam was the final thread in a story I'd neatly tied off. But life has a funny way of reminding you that closure isn't always a straight line. A few weeks after we returned home, Daniel and I were settling back into our routine. One evening, while flipping through photos from our trip, Daniel grew unusually quiet, his brows furrowed slightly, his fingers pausing over one photo. A candid shot of us laughing in front of the Louvre with a faint blur of people in the background. "Hey," he said, tilting the phone toward me. "Isn't that Liam? Again?" I squinted. In the blurry background, there he was. Liam. A different outfit from the cafe, but unmistakably him. "That's weird," I muttered, brushing it off with a nervous laugh. Probably just a coincidence. But it didn't feel like one. Over the next few days, little things started to stand out. A random bouquet of my favorite flowers left anonymously at my doorstep. A song Liam used to play popping up on my playlist, even though I hadn't added it. Then Daniel mentioned he thought he saw someone following him after work, but when he turned around, no one was there. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, but deep down, a knot of unease tightened. I decided to face it head on. I sent Liam a message. "I don't know what's going on, but if you're trying to insert yourself into my life again, stop." The reply came faster than I expected. "It's not what you think. Can we talk? One last time. Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Not because I wanted answers from him, but because I needed to end whatever this was. We met at the same park where we'd last spoken. Liam looked different again, more tired, as if life had worn him down even further since Paris. "I swear I wasn't following you," he blurted out before I could even speak. "But I have been in Paris for months. I moved there for work. Seeing you wasn't a coincidence." I crossed my arms, skeptical. "Then what was it?" He ran a hand through his hair, visibly agitated. "I didn't plan to run into you, but when I did, I realized I couldn't ignore it. Seeing you happy, with him, it messed with me. Not because I want you back," he added quickly, "but because it made me realize how much I've screwed up, not just with you, but with my life. I've been spiraling, and seeing you again forced me to face it." I didn't know whether to believe him, but the rawness in his voice was different from the smooth-talking Liam I'd once known. "Liam," I said, my voice steady, "your mistakes aren't my responsibility to fix. I'm not your lesson. I'm not your catalyst. I'm just me, living my life without you in it." He nodded slowly, tears glinting in his eyes. "I know." And for the first time, I believed him. As I walked away, there was no dramatic exit, no lingering questions, just clarity. Liam had been chasing closure, but I realized I'd found mine long ago. Not through revenge, not even through forgiveness, but through living fully and authentically, with or without the echoes of my past. And that was the lesson I'd taught myself. I thought that final conversation with Liam was the true ending, clean, decisive, and tucked neatly into the past. But life isn't always that generous with closure. Sometimes, even when you think you've closed the door, the past finds another way in. A month passed. Daniel and I grew even closer, our relationship solid and steady. But one evening, I noticed him acting distant. Subtle things. A delay in answering texts, a forced smile here and there. His phone always flipped face down. At first, I brushed it off. We were both busy with work, after all. But then I found a message on his laptop, left open by accident. It wasn't from Liam. It was from someone named Clara. The message was short, but it hit harder than any of Liam's betrayals ever had. "I miss you. When can we talk?" My heart sank. Not because I was afraid of the truth. I'd been here before. But because I couldn't believe I'd let myself be blindsided again. I confronted Daniel that night. He didn't deny it. Clara was an ex, someone he'd dated briefly before me. He claimed it was nothing, just an old flame trying to reconnect. But his guilty eyes said otherwise. The irony wasn't lost on me. After all I'd been through with Liam, after all the lessons I thought I'd learned, here I was, again. But this time was different. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't beg for explanations or closure. I simply packed a bag, booked a hotel for the night, and left. because I'd learned that sometimes the real lesson isn't about teaching someone else. It's about teaching yourself when to walk away without looking back. In the weeks that followed, I focused on me. I traveled solo, explored new places, and rediscovered passions I'd set aside. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't defined by a relationship or the scars left by one. One day, while sitting at a beachside cafe, my phone buzzed. 2 messages. One from Liam, one from Daniel. I didn't open either. Because the lesson had been learned, the story had been told, and I was already writing the next chapter. One where I was the main character, not just a supporting role in someone else's drama. And it felt like freedom. The salty breeze kissed my face as I sat at that beachside cafe, the untouched coffee growing cold beside me. My phone buzzed again, persistent, like the universe wasn't done with me. I stared at the 2 unread messages, one from Liam, one from Daniel. But I didn't open them. Not because I was afraid of what they'd say, but because I already knew. They'd be filled with excuses, half-hearted apologies, maybe even declarations of change. But I wasn't interested in recycled words anymore. I wanted actions. My own. The next morning, I woke up to the sunrise bleeding pink and orange across the sky. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. No more tangled emotions, no more trying to fix things or people that were never mine to fix. I decided to extend my trip. I rented a small scooter and spent days exploring hidden coves, chatting with strangers who knew nothing about my past, and writing in a journal I'd almost forgotten I owned. Every page filled with thoughts, dreams, and pieces of me I'd left behind in the chaos of heartbreak. One evening, after hiking to a cliffside overlooking the endless ocean, I finally opened those messages. Liam's message. I'm sorry. Not for what happened, because I can't change that. But for not being the person you deserved when you needed me to be. I hope you're happy. Truly. It was mature. Unexpectedly so. But it didn't stir anything inside me. Just words floating in the ether. Too late to anchor anywhere meaningful. Daniel's message. I messed up. I was scared of how real things felt with you. Clara was a mistake, not because she mattered, but because I let my fear sabotage something good. I miss you. Fear. That word stuck with me, not because of what it meant for Daniel, but because of what it revealed about me. I'd been afraid too. Afraid to be alone. Afraid to start over. Afraid that maybe, just maybe, I was the common denominator in all this heartbreak. But sitting on that cliff, I realized something profound. It wasn't about Liam. It wasn't about Daniel. It was about me. I'd been searching for validation in the wrong places, thinking love had to come wrapped in someone else's presence. But love, real, unwavering, unapologetic love, starts from within. So I replied to both messages with the same words. Thank you. I've learned what I needed to. I hope you do too. And then, without hesitation, I deleted their numbers. Months later, back home, I started my own business. A small travel blog that grew faster than I'd expected. My adventures, my lessons, my voice. People connected with the rawness, the honesty, the messy beauty of it all. One day, during a book signing for my newly published memoir, a woman approached me with tears in her eyes. You helped me leave a toxic relationship, she whispered. Your story gave me the courage to start over. And in that moment, I realized the lesson wasn't just mine. It was meant to be shared. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well. It's thriving. It's inspiring. It's turning your pain into purpose. And that's exactly what I did. Standing there, pen in hand, listening to that woman's heartfelt words, I felt something shift deep within me. It wasn't pride exactly. It was something purer. Fulfillment. The kind that doesn't come from someone else's validation, but from knowing you've transformed your pain into something meaningful. After the signing, I sat alone in my car, staring at the city lights flickering like scattered constellations. My phone buzzed again. Not from Liam. Not from Daniel. This time, it was an unknown number. Hey, I don't know if you'll even read this. I saw your interview. You're doing amazing things. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. Clara. I stared at the message, my heart unexpectedly still. I didn't feel anger, no resentment, just clarity. A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I replied, Thank you, Clara. I hope you're doing well. Surprisingly, she responded almost immediately. We ended up exchanging a few messages, not about Daniel, not about the past, but about life, healing, growth. She told me she'd left Daniel not long after everything unfolded. He hadn't changed, not really. She had learned her own hard lessons. It was strange, connecting with someone I'd once thought of as part of the problem. But as we talked, I realized how easy it is to villainize people when you're hurting. Life isn't always about heroes and villains. Sometimes it's just about broken people making bad choices. Months passed. The blog flourished. My book sales soared, and I started hosting workshops about self-worth and healing after betrayal. That's when I met Aiden. He wasn't like Liam or Daniel. There were no games, no mixed signals, no undercurrents of insecurity masked by charm. Just genuine kindness, steady presence, and an authenticity that disarmed me in the best way. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the sunset, he turned to me and said, You know, you talk about Liam and Daniel sometimes, but not with bitterness. How did you get to that place? I smiled, sipping my tea. I stopped seeing them as mistakes. They were lessons. Without them, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be me. Aiden nodded thoughtfully. I think that's your superpower, turning heartbreak into wisdom. Years later, I received one last message from Liam. I saw your TED Talk. You've come a long way. I'm happy for you. And this time, I didn't feel the need to respond, because the lesson had come full circle. It was never about teaching them a lesson. It was about learning my own. And I had. Years had passed. My life had blossomed into something I never thought possible. The book tours, the TED Talk, the thriving blog, all proof that I'd not only survived, but thrived. But fate has a way of testing you just when you think you've closed every chapter. It was a crisp autumn evening. I had been invited to speak at a prestigious event about resilience and empowerment. The grand hall was filled with influential faces, the kind that had only existed on magazine covers for me before. As I stepped onto the stage, I scanned the crowd. And that's when I saw him. Sitting in the third row, looking smug yet haunted, as if he wasn't sure if he belonged there or if I was just a ghost from his past. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, but it felt like time had folded in on itself. I delivered my speech flawlessly, masking the storm brewing inside. But as the applause faded and the crowd dispersed, Liam approached me. You've really made something of yourself, he said, his voice dripping with that old charm that no longer held any power over me. I forced a polite smile. I made something of myself long before you realized what you lost. But Liam wasn't here just to reminisce. There's something I need to tell you, he blurted out, his confident facade cracking. It's about Daniel. My heart skipped. What about him? He leaned in, his voice a low whisper. Daniel didn't meet you by accident. He sought you out. He knew who you were before you met. It was all part of some twisted game to prove I wasn't the only one who could break you. I froze, my breath hitching. That's impossible. But deep down, a small dark part of me knew it wasn't. Liam continued. It started as a bet. But I think he fell for you. Really fell. That's why he messed up. Because he's just like me, incapable of holding on to something real. I didn't sleep that night. I found Daniel's number, buried deep in my deleted contacts, and against all logic, I called. Hello? His voice was the same. Warm, familiar, deceptive. I didn't waste time. Did you seek me out because of Liam? Silence. A long, damning silence. Then softly. At first, yes. But it wasn't like that. It changed. You changed it. Rage boiled inside me, not because of Daniel's betrayal, but because I'd let my guard down again. Funny, I whispered. You both tried to break me, but here I am, still standing. And you? You're nothing more than a footnote in my story. I hung up. I realized something then. Closure isn't a conversation or an apology. It's not a neat ending wrapped in explanations. It's a choice. I chose to let it go. Not for them. For me. Because the best plot twist isn't revenge. It's living a life so full, so fierce, and so unapologetically yours that no one's betrayal can ever rewrite your story. And that's exactly what I did.